In 1975, NBC was worried about the future of The Tonight Show. Johnny Carson was coming up on his 15th anniversary. By comparison, his predecessor Jack Paar had only hosted the show for 5 years, and the show's creator Steve Allen had quit after only 3 years. So, with Johnny coming up on 15 years on the show and him well into his 50s, the smart money was on Johnny moving on to new projects. Carson himself had even hinted at the likelihood in jokes and interviews. NBC wanted his successor lined up, signed, sealed, and delivered in time to take over as expected in October of 1977. And the choice for the next host seemed obvious.
Starring Johnny Carson. Johnny's guest host tonight is McLean Stevenson. This is Doc Severinsen along with Tommy Newsom and the NBC Orchestra inviting you to join McLean and his guests. And now, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome McLean Stevenson.
At the time, McLean Stevenson and David Brenner had pretty much been trading off guest hosting duties when Johnny took Mondays off or went on vacation. And as an ensemble player on TV's biggest sitcom, NBC felt they had a bankable name in Stevenson. At the same time, McLean Stevenson was trying to get out of his contract with 20th Century Fox for MASH. He was tired of playing second fiddle to all the other actors and wanted to be a star in his own right. So NBC moved in for the kill. According to writer Mark Evanier, NBC offered Stevenson a contract worth many times what he was being paid for MASH, plus The Tonight Show when Johnny stepped down. Stevenson jumped at the opportunity. 20th Century Fox let Stevenson out of his contract, but they were not happy about it.
Lieutenant Colonel Henry Blake's plane was shot down over the Sea of Japan.
Mac, you're living on love, it's a way in life. Got a little boy grin, are you gonna be our best friend?
Stevenson's first show for NBC was the appropriately named The McLean Stevenson Show, a sitcom produced by Let's Make a Deal host Monty Hall as part of his contract with the network. It was about an older couple whose children all moved back when they're looking forward to being alone. Hall had created the show for Emmy Award-winning actor William Wyndham, but NBC threatened to pull the plug unless Hall recast Stevenson in the role. He relented and regretted it until he died. The McLean Stevenson Show debuted on December 1st, 1976, and was pulled off the air on March 3rd, 1977 after 10 weeks. They never even bothered to air the last 2 episodes that were produced. Stevenson's next project was In the Beginning, a Norman Lear sitcom starring Stevenson as a Porsche-driving priest. NBC passed on the show, and CBS bought it as part of Lear's contract with them. It only lasted 5 episodes, with the last 4 never aired. With 2 failures under his belt and Carson's 15th anniversary come and gone, Stevenson was growing restless. Newly arrived NBC boss Fred Silverman, though, was still worried that Johnny Carson could walk at any time. Carson had been complaining about his work schedule and was making demands that the network was hesitant to give in to. Silverman needed to keep Stevenson ready to take over, so one last Hail Mary pass was called for.
In the beginning.
Silverman called in veteran sitcom writers and producers Dick Bensfield and Perry Grant and ordered them to develop a new sitcom for Stevenson. They came up with a show about a newly divorced talk show host who uproots his 2 daughters and moves from LA to Portland for a new start. Joanna Gleason, in her TV debut, played Larry's producer and potential love interest for Morgan. Former Disney Kid repertory actress and future Real Housewife Kim Richards was cast as Larry's daughter Ruthie after, according to legend, another Disney girl named Lisa Whelchel was unavailable because she had signed on for The Facts of Life. Donna Wilkes, who had made a name for herself in Jaws 2, was cast as Larry's other daughter Diane. George Mimoli, who had played comic roles in Brian De Palma's Phantom of the Paradise and Procter & Bergman's Americathon rounded out the cast as Larry's engineer Earl. With everything in place, NBC slotted the show into late Friday evenings.
On Turnabout, a little magic made Penny and Sam switch bodies.
I am in your body and you're in mine.
And sometimes things get too hot to handle. Then it's Hello Larry. His fans listen, but his teenage daughters don't.
He's got a band?
Yeah, he calls it his Rassel Castle.
Premiering Friday.
Well, hello Larry.
Hello, Larry.
You talk to people all day for a living.
Hello, Larry.
But all those easy answers you are giving, are you really living your life that way? Portland is a long way from LA.
A long way.
Hello Larry.
Hello, Larry.
Two kids to raise alone just ain't that easy.
Hello, Larry.
The questions they are asking aren't that breezy. The answers you are giving don't always pay. But that's the way it is with kids today. But calls are coming in, you better start to grin, 'cause you never know just what they're gonna say.
Hello, Larry.
Hello Larry.
Hello, Larry.
Hello Larry.
Hello, Larry.
Wow, hello Larry.
Hello Larry debuted on January 26, 1979, and the ratings were, well, to put it bluntly, abysmal. Part of that was due to it being in the notorious 10 p.m. Friday death slot that had killed off many shows, most notably Star Trek, but the reviews didn't help either. One critic called it a less funny WKRP in Cincinnati. NBC let the show languish in the late slot for another month, by which time Hello Larry had become a running gag for Carson on The Tonight Show. Cancellation was all but certain, but Silverman, facing tough contract negotiations with Carson, was unwilling to risk losing Stevenson. Silverman ordered the show to be retooled, softening some of the humor and downplaying the work angle, focusing more on the family.
You're raising them just fine, but keep an open mind, 'cause you never know just what they're gonna say.
He also moved the show to 8:30 right after one of the few successes he'd had as NBC's boss, Different Strokes. The numbers didn't improve, and Hello Larry couldn't seem to hold on to Different Strokes' audience. So Silverman came up with an ingenious idea. Hello Larry would become television's first retroactive spinoff.
Hey, Larry! You big lug! How's the gold brick lieutenant?
Phil, you old son of a gun. How's my favorite insubordinate sergeant?
Couldn't be better. I miss you. Hey, where's that $4 you owe me?
Operator, I got a bad connection. You got it backwards, pal.
Larry was suddenly turned into an old war buddy of Different Strokes' Phil Drummond, and Mr. Drummond was revealed to have unwittingly bought Larry's radio station.
Hey, Larry, you still got that radio show?
No, you have that radio show. Congratulations on buying the station.
What? What station?
Where I work. That's why I called you. Aren't you one of the big mucky mucks of Trans Allied Incorporated?
Well, just a little mucky muck. I'm on the board.
Well, little mucky muck, your company just bought the station.
Really? I guess I better start staying awake at the meetings.
The two-part crossover had great ratings for the half that happened on Different Strokes. But when the action shifted to Portland for part 2 at 8:30, the audience either turned their dial somewhere else or turned their TV off and went out for the night. The show struggled along for the rest of the season, and in the final ratings, it barely managed to sneak into 68th place out of 114 shows. How bad is that rating? The show it barely beat out for 68th place was another Silverman disaster called Super Train. But that's another story. Once again, cancellation seemed certain, but contract talks with Carson were still going on, and Silverman felt he still needed Stevenson as a potential replacement. So the order went out, renew it, and retool it again. For its second season, the show went through a complete overhaul. The radio station, gone. Earl, gone. One of the actresses who played the kids, gone. In their place, recast daughter, check. Larry's father we never heard of before, check. Annoying stereotypical Italian kid next door, check. token ethnic, big name athlete turned actor? Check. The addition of Meadowlark Lemon as himself, or according to the credits, as Meadowlark, shows just how desperate Silverman was, thinking that adding a black character, any black character, to the show would help retain Different Strokes' audience says a lot about how people of color were seen by TV executives even in the supposedly enlightened 1970s. Meadowlark was introduced in a season-opening two-parter with Different Strokes, where Larry goes to New York to, irony of ironies, audition for a job as a talk show host. Meadowlark is scheduled as a guest on the show and then ends up, for some reason, moving out to Portland himself to open a sporting goods store. If anything, the new changes made the critics hate the show even more. The same critic who called it an unfunny WKRP said that it had turned into an unfunny One Day at a Time. But Silverman still needed McLean Stevenson as his ace in the hole against Carson. And then the other shoe dropped. In April of 1980, Johnny Carson got a phone call from Edgar Rosenberg, the husband of Carson's close friend Joan Rivers. Since Carson was forbidden to negotiate with other networks while still under contract, Rosenberg had been talking to some people behind the scenes, and in the call he said in a stage whisper that he was an emissary of the alphabet people who want to discuss a possible post-Peacock throne. Translated, that means that ABC were prepared to give Carson everything that NBC wouldn't to jump ship. Silverman finally blinked, but in a final negotiating ploy, he leaked the word that NBC was ready to sign a deal with the next host of The Tonight Show, Richard Dawson. Stevenson's charmed life, and as a result, Hello Larry's, was at an end. NBC officially pulled the plug on April 29th. McLean Stevenson went on to star on even more failed projects, never again achieving the success he had as part of the MASH ensemble. Meanwhile, Carson got everything he demanded and more. A huge increase in salary, a 3-day work week, and 17 weeks of vacation. He stayed as host of The Tonight Show for another 13 years before finally retiring. And as for NBC, they learned their lesson and never again used the promise of being the next host of The Tonight Show as a carrot to dangle before talent they wanted to give. Oh, who am I kidding? But those are other stories.